Okay. My phone does say 12 o'clock on the nose, and are we waiting on anybody else, John?
Nope.
Okay, so let's, it's 12 o'clock on Friday, August 12th, and this is our regular meeting of the Finance Committee. Karen, could you please do a roll call?
Commissioner Donaldson,
Here.
Commissioner Shirley, or
Here.
Councilmember Shirley, I'm so sorry. Councilmember Donaldson and Mayor Kerr.
Aye. So we're all in attendance. At this point, we're going to go out for public comments. General public comment must deal with matters subject to this jurisdiction of the city and this committee that are not on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the Finance Committee on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered. There will be a time limit of not more than 3 minutes for each speaker. No action will be taken on matters brought up under this item, and all comments will be referred to staff. So I'd like to open it for any public comments. I am seeing no members of the public, so I'm going to bring it back to the committee. Our first item is to receive June 2022 preliminary financial reports. Am I turning this over to you, City Manager?
Sure, and then I will turn it over to Roberto.
Okay.
Who is, thanks to the magic of the internet, joining us from Texas.
Okay, so was that your introduction, John?
That was it, yeah.
Okay, so as you have noticed, the staff reports, it says this is preliminary June numbers. Typically, we do at the end of the following month, we provide numbers for the previous month. June, because it is the final month of the fiscal year, is not complete yet. So these are the numbers as of the day that we printed the reports. Excuse me, there's still invoices that are coming in, such as the City of Seaside's fire department invoice, and there's a few others that are still trickling in. By the end of this month, hopefully by the 15th, we should have all of them in, but by the end of this month, we'll have all the invoices in, and then we will have a true June expenditures. On the revenue side too, we will go over some of the changes, because this is the month where we have to do a lot of accruals. We're going to get into a little bit of accounting this in our discussion this afternoon. If you have any questions as I talk about it, by all means, let me know. So let me share some of the reports and just hit a couple of highlights. Let me see, share, where's my share screen? Okay, here we go. So this is the cash balances as of June. We're just a little bit under 13 million. Most numbers down here don't change. What's of notice here is the economic and LAIF. We have this much that has been previously set aside for economic uncertainty, and then we have 817 extra. I guess you might say it's unreserved in LAIF. So right now the city is doing well, and I'll go over why some of that is the case right now. That's the cash position. The general fund, as of right now, and you can see my numbers, right? I always wonder. So as of right now, the budget was 4.7. We've taken in 4.7, 4.5. We've taken in 4.7. We're actually above. Most things came in a little bit above budget, which is great. And we'll go over what the source is. Most of it is up here. The big number is up here in the other taxes, which we'll go into in detail in a minute. On the expenditure side, the budget was 4.1. At this point, we're 3.8 million spent. But like I said, there's still more invoices, like the fire department. It looks like we saved quite a bit. It's not, because we still are missing some invoices there, and some in planning and building, and a couple more that are coming in. But as it stands, this is revenues over expenditures. Stand at $897,000 surplus. Now, that is not the true surplus we were expecting at the end of the year. We budgeted for a surplus of 386. We will definitely have 500,000, I'm pretty sure, but it will not be this much. As I mentioned, there's still more invoices to come in, anywhere from 50 to 100,000. And the revenues are going to change because we received revenue in July. There's some revenues, and we'll talk about it more when we get to the July reports that are received in July and August that actually belong to this year. And then therefore, that means the revenue that we received in here that we received in July and August actually belonged to last year. And so we'll reverse one and put in the other, and it changes these numbers. It's called modified accrual accounting. We basically go cash all year long. Then at the end of the year, we adjust for these differences. It's not that just that we want to, it's just that's what the accounting standards require. Somebody came up with that at one point in time so that the accounting is correct. But the good thing is that we were budgeted at 386, we're at 897. We should be easily 500,000 or more. So the year is good here. On the expenditure side, you can see everybody's under budget with two exceptions. One is the auditor treasurer, which is a finance, and that's primarily due to RGS services, which we will get into more little by little. As towards the end, we will have a full discussion on the RGS contract. And then the non-departmental, there's some expenses here that we still need to move to one of the other departments. So it's really not going to be non-departmental, but you can see everybody is under budget. We've only spent 91.4. Revenues are over. That's the way you want to see it. You want more revenue coming in and less expenses than you budgeted. So just to give you a little bit more on the detailed side of this, on the expenditure side, well, actually, on the expenditure side, RGS was budgeted accounting services at 180. We meant to come back to the council earlier in the year with a contract adjustment. It just never quite got finalized, but we did end up at 219 as opposed to the 180 budget that was at the very start of the fiscal year. That's the one big number that stands out. On the positive side, going the other way, the legal services was budgeted at 225, came in at 160, which is great, especially considering last year was way over 200,000. That's why we budgeted 225, but that's good. So we will talk more about the RGS contract in a little bit. On the revenue side, just wanted to highlight that the property, the sales tax, we had budgeted 490. Right now we've received 581. And on the sales tax add-on, the two measures, we budgeted 900,000 and they've come in at 989. And we did talk earlier in the year that there's a bump. It's a one-time. The money that was deferred during COVID is now back, but it's not going to be ongoing. It's just we received it this fiscal year. Cannabis, you can see we're still a little short on the receipts. Business license, it's not going to be this high. This is, we've actually received 300,000 during the year, only budgeted 215. But 146,000 was received in June. Some of that is actually for July. People are paying their business licenses in June for July. So we will be adjusting these numbers. When we meet again, we'll have adjusted numbers that will actually reflect. Once we're done collecting July and August, we'll be adjusting these numbers. But right now, all the numbers are good, with the exception of the RGS contract. Everything for June is good. Like I said, these are preliminary, they will change. Be happy to answer any questions about June before we move on to July.
So let's go to Councilman Donaldson. Any questions?
Yeah, so Roberto, great rundown, really appreciate it. The invoices that are outstanding that you mentioned, do you expect those to be consistent with the previous invoices? In other words, are there set costs in some of those areas where we kind of know what to expect on those invoices? And if so, are they going to be consistent with what we've had before?
Yes and no to the question. There are some are, for instance, the fire department. We know what the contract amount is. So we know what the next quarterly invoice is. We're waiting for it. If we don't get it in time to close the books, we're gonna record what we know the number should be and wait for them to give us, we're not gonna pay until they give us an invoice, but we'll record how much it should be, because we know that's a contract. There's some more invoices pending from Denise Duffy, which is based on hours worked. So that can change from 1 year to the next. It won't be a lot. We managed to get most of their invoices. But at this point, we feel we've got most everything except for the fire department, and Denise Duffy numbers are in here. There may still be some more stragglers, but I think we've got everybody in here. We know which ones tend to be the late ones. So we start calling them to make sure that we can close the books on time.
Yeah, and importantly, one key thing is that we do know that there's nothing big hanging out there that's going to be a surprise. So we know that we're going to end the year well within budget.
And that's a key point, John. That's good to know.
Yeah.
The only other thing, just a comment, great news on sales tax. And also, I've mentioned it before, but for the city manager, I really appreciate you keeping the legal service fees in check, or spending in check. Those savings look really good. So I really appreciate that. And those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Councilperson Shirley?
Yeah, thank you, Roberto, for your report. Just a point of clarification on the Economic Uncertainty Fund. I see it's reduced from last year. Is that just the fluctuation with the stock market?
Okay, no, that's,
Oh,
I should have caught this. This is the amount. It used to all be reported last year. It was all in one line. Everything went into this Economic Uncertainty Fund. This, which included extra cash actually that was available this year. We're breaking it out so we know exactly how much is the uncertainty and how much is extra. This is the extra. In here last year, it would have been 1.6 plus another 100,000 up here. It just wasn't picked up that way last year. I guess the best way to put it is we're trying to make the numbers more meaningful little by little. Unfortunately, when we do a comparison to the previous year, sometimes the numbers are off. But no, it did not go down.
okay. So it just looks different because you've sort of spread it out into two different descriptions.
Yes.
Okay, good. And then in terms of the cannabis tax, it looks like we're down about 25,000 from what we budgeted. Is that all? I'm assuming most of that is I Squared not paying their taxes. Are there other fluctuations that we've seen with the cannabis businesses as to why we've seen that decrease?
Yeah, I think this is a trend that's going to continue, that our cannabis receipts are going to keep going down. But yeah, a significant portion of it is tax deferrals from I Squared. And that'll continue going forward, probably with them not being able, well, we'll see what happens with them.
Right.
But also the dispensary is hanging in there. And when I speak to them, they're in for the long haul and they're playing the long game. But they are being impacted by the number of new dispensaries in the region, and all the dispensaries on the peninsula are all seeing a downturn in revenue because there's just so many of them now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, I had a few questions. It looked like the airport, there was some funding that is still owed to us. Was I correct in that?
There's just a little bit still.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So the airport, I'm hearing DD&A, of course.
Yep.
And can you tell us when the sales tax will be fine, when the sales tax numbers will be final? I mean, could it be another month or is it, how is that timing?
So for our next finance committee meeting, we will have the final numbers. We have July's numbers. August numbers will be coming in we haven't received them yet. August numbers will also go to last year, so we'll have the final number by the end of August.
So could we have that by the council meeting?
Uh, Usually it does, no, it doesn't come in till the very end of the month.
Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out when we can
Mhm.
anticipate those numbers being final.
Well, yeah, so by the next finance committee, you will have final numbers.
Okay. And you are going to kind of divvy up the non-departmental into the
Yes.
appropriate, okay. And I think my other questions are coming up. Yeah, that was it for me. So shall we move on to the July 2022 draft financial reports? Were we done with the June?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so for July, let me, okay, what happened to my screen? Okay. I want to share. Okay, hold on a second. Let me. Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to do these one at a time until I get this to work a little more. So this is the July cash that you're looking at, right? Hopefully. Okay, so I apologize, disregard the prior year. This report was, we missed some numbers here and the column got squished. They left off some numbers here, but cash is still pretty much 12.9 million. In this case, we forgot to break out the LAVE number. So this is still draft. The finance committee meeting came earlier this month, and sometimes by the time we have to get the agenda numbers, so we kind of had to rush. So that's why I call this draft, because there's still a couple items I need to break out the LAVE between what's in the economic uncertainty and how much is actually unreserved. But you can tell the numbers are pretty much the same. So it's pretty much the same as it was at the end of June. What I do want to talk about a little bit more is the July, the budget for July. We've collected 8.19% of the budget. 1 month is 8.33% of the year. So we're tracking on that. And then on the expenditures, we're at 8.1%. Again, that's both of these numbers for July are good because that's only, we should be at 8.33. And of course, nothing ever goes exactly 8.33. But this is where we're at right now. The numbers that, I mean, everything is month is just the start of the year. July is the start of the year. We only spent 4,000. We have a surplus of 4,000 revenues over expenditures. But now to follow up from the discussion earlier, so in the month of July, this is the actual details for July. You'll see we haven't hardly received anything here because the property taxes are not going to be received till December, but sales tax. So this 40,000 technically belongs to last year. The sales tax are received after the fact. The sales tax add-on will also go to last year. And actually, interestingly enough, this 22,000 in cannabis tax will also go to last year because everybody pays after the month. So this is for June, paid in July. So actually, as it turns out, we're going to come close to the 200,000 in last year's numbers when we add this accrual. But we're going to be taking out the accrual from the prior year. So we're probably going to be back to 175, which is what's there. It's, I mean, that's what it's called. It's just accrual. We reversed last year's and we had this year. So if we were to add this, we'd be at 200,000. But then when we reverse the prior year's numbers, we'll be back to about 175. This is last year's numbers too. All of these revenues all basically will go to last year. And then July's revenues from last year will be reversed and replaced with these revenues. That's the best this way I can put it for right now. And then there's others, there's gas tax that also works like that, and the SB1 monies that have to be accrued at year end. But usually when you remove one and replace the other, the difference is not that great. So that's what I'm saying. We're still going to be easily at 500,000. But but I can't say a good number until we get it all, everything recorded. So July is just the start. These are the only ones that I was gonna highlight. The other thing maybe actually to mention, oops, make this thing too big, is okay, that's not, let me see, was, okay, on the, just for your council's information here, the UAL, let's see, let me get to one line item that actually has this, okay. So here, let me see, auditor, treasurer, where's? Okay, the clerk is a good one here. We have, oh, we didn't get, we paid it a little late. The UAL, that this 40,000 in August will show up in lump sum. We're paying the UAL, which is the unfunded liability, basically, once a year upfront. The city could pay it monthly, but by paying it upfront, you gain 4%. And the city's not going to make 4% on its money if we leave it in the bank. So traditionally, the city has been paying the UAL upfront. Otherwise, you pay 4% more if you pay it to them on a monthly basis. And also in July, you'll see some more other there's large payments that are made in July. Our insurance, half of the insurance gets paid. So that will tend to skew the numbers as we go forward, because lump sum payments are made up front and then some of them are half of it. But other than that, everything will go on a regular monthly basis. Not much else I can say about July unless, other than answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Councilman Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you. The only comment that I have is on the UAL paid up front. I absolutely support that. And, you know, I think that should continue as really a standard operating procedure for the city. And I mean, we don't see that changing, right, John? I mean, that'll continue to be the case.
Yeah, as long as we keep managing the budget the way that we have, and we continue to have the fund balance at the end of the year, then yeah, that's our policy, is to keep funding that.
Okay, sounds good. And those are the only comments that I had.
Okay, Councilwoman Shirley.
No, thank you. I don't have any comments for July. Thank you.
I had a couple. Could you explain the workers' comp? So for example, I'm looking at the city clerk workers' comp expense is 64%, and city managers is 67, and PDs is 41. Is that also a lump sum, or are we anticipating a huge increase in those expenses?
That's half of a lump sum.
Okay.
They bill 50% in July, and then the other 50% in January. They bill in 50% increments, that's all.
But our numbers are off, so I'm anticipating a mid-year shift.
Oh, okay.
The
Okay,
city,
no, it's-
yeah, the city clerk's numbers were 64%. So I'm guessing if we're anticipating that's 50%, then we're gonna have to increase it, 14% or 28%.
I'll tell you what, we
Ish.
can take a closer look. I don't know, John, do you recall? I can't recall if the numbers have changed since they gave us the budget to begin with. We'll tell you what, we'll take a look at that one, because they should be, it's actually not 50%. Some of them are, I can't remember right now. I'd have to pull up the invoice. One of them is 50%, the other one is 100,000. Is what they asked. So I'm not sure what percentage that is.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we, and can anticipate whatever that looks like.
Well, and also we don't always have to modify at that granularity going forward, because we do bottom line budgeting. And so as long as we're staying within the appropriation limit, it doesn't really matter at the line item level that we're exact with what expenditures are going to be and what revenues are.
Okay.
Because it all rolls down to the bottom.
Okay. The same thing with the liability / prop non-department under public works. It's at 70%.
they likewise give us a large bill. We'll need to
Okay.
take a look and see if it was a 50% bill, or if it was just a dollar amount, and
Right.
then more
Okay,
afterwards.
great. Those were my questions. Thanks, Roberto.
Okay.
So it sounds like we're going to move on to discuss RGS agreement for financial services. And I didn't see a staff report about this.
Yeah, no, there's no staff report for it. I'm just gonna,
Okay.
this will come to the council and there'll be a staff report with the council.
Okay,
It just wasn't ready, but I wanted to talk with you guys about it first, so. Hang up on the telemarketer first. So, as Roberto mentioned, you know, the contract is a little, we've continued to lean heavily on RGS for financial services and HR services. You know, we've had a plan for moving forward and cleaning up the past and getting new systems in place, getting new procedures, new policies, all of that, getting staff trained. That's a long process. We've had a couple hiccups with, you know, getting one staff member well on his way to training, and then for some unknown reason he decided that Florida was a desirable place to live and moved to Florida on us. So we had to restart that training process with Lee. So that's caused a little bit of a delay in getting staff up to speed on some of the things that we want to take back from RGS. But they've been great. They've been really flexible and working with us on that. We've made a lot of progress with closing out prior years. You know, it's like anything else. As we dig into things, we find things that we weren't anticipating. We find things that need to be addressed and new policies and procedures that need to be developed, and that takes some time. And then we've had some unforeseen things where I opted for getting more professional services on some personnel issues that we've had, and getting some dedicated HR assistance with helping us through that process. So some of the funding that was going to be used in other areas has moved in that direction, because I want to make sure that, you know, we're handling our HR issues appropriately, and more importantly, tracking what best practices are from an industry-wide perspective, and starting to build those practices into our policies and actually create policies in a lot of cases, so that we have fewer, well, for example, when we bring in new people, having procedures that everybody understands, and actually having tracking lists and checklists and everything, so we don't miss steps, because in the past we've had situations where people have come on and, you know, for whatever reason, paperwork doesn't get done properly, or doesn't get done, or one person thinks they're handling, somebody else handling it, and, you know, left hand's not always working with the right hand, and so we end up having to pay back PERS for people, things like that. We want to get away from that, and we need dedicated HR professional help with that, making sure that we're building a foundation that we can support the structure on going forward. More importantly, as we continue to have turnover and things change here at City Hall, we have things that are established, so when new folks come in, there's not such a steep learning curve on what it is their responsibilities are, and how to keep things going, and how to keep things going properly. But so we're going to continue to need to lean on RGS for at least another fiscal year, pretty heavily. They're doing most of the financial work for us. They're doing a lot of the HR work for us, because, like I said, there is a lot of training that still needs to happen. When Kim left, a lot of that institutional knowledge left with her on how things were being done. And RGS has been doing not just the background work of cleanup and the training and building that, but they're also doing the day-to-day stuff for us still on processing accounts payable, processing accounts receivable, doing our check runs, all of the nuts and bolts stuff that eventually we want to take back in-house, we're still relying very heavily on them to help us with that, because we haven't had the ability to get everybody trained up on that and feel comfortable taking that on ourselves yet. So that's just a long way of saying we're going to continue to need them. It's going to continue to be a little bit expensive, but we do have an end game. And so we are just like with the legal services, we reach a point where we're able to take a lot of that responsibility on, and start to wean ourselves off a little bit from some of the consultant help that we need right now as we're going through this transition period. So when I come to the council, I don't want you all to have too much sticker shock. It's going to be about the same as what we paid last fiscal year, is what I'm anticipating for this next fiscal year. And then we'll start to ratchet down from there. So with that, if you have any questions, I can answer any questions about what we're doing.
Okay. Councilman Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I see this as a necessary part of doing business, and I totally support the way ahead as the city manager described it. I mean, what it comes down to is this is really the most efficient way that we can tackle the business that's done at City Hall. I mean, we can't add full-time staff, and there are requirements out there, not only the day-to-day requirements, but also those things that we're trying to clean up that the city manager had mentioned. And, anytime you have personnel turnover, you can't, those are things that just happen. You can't control them, and that's what's happened in this case. And luckily we got a good one in Lee, and she's doing a great job, and she got spun up real quick. But there are costs associated with that turnover, and once again, I just see this as a necessary part of what we do. And the last part that the city manager mentioned, that it's most likely going to go the same way as what our legal services situation is. And I like that. I like seeing that end game to it. And I know it's coming, but in the meantime, we just got to pay for it. So those are my comments.
Okay. Councilperson Shirley.
So thanks, John. So it sounds like you anticipate through the year, again, sending some of these responsibilities that RGS has and put them on to the staff, because you'll be training them up. And so within the year, you'll be able to reduce this budget based off responsibilities now being carried out with our other staff members. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, so the reason that I'm looking at basically having the same costs going throughout the fiscal year is we've been really heavily focused on the financial side, and Roberto and Ermelinda and everyone on his team have been doing a really good job of helping us, clean up the past, get things closed out, and also supporting the staff and the transitions we've had, and slowly starting to, we're still having some struggles with the financial system. It was set up at a time that we were going through some transition, so it wasn't in every area. It wasn't set up the way that we would have preferred it to be set up. So we're having to backtrack in some of those areas and do that. So that's taking time, but we're getting to a point where we're going to start making significant progress on that, and we can start pulling some of that back. But at the same time, we have needs in the HR realm, and so as we start to pull back from needing them so much on the financial side, because we're handing that off to internal staff, then I'm going to be pushing harder on the HR side. So I'm going to need RGS to kind of ramp up and helping us on the HR side. So that's why I see their costs staying level, even as we're starting to pull back a little bit. And then, yeah, hopefully by the end of the fiscal year, we'll also have the HR side under wraps a little bit better. But it's, like Councilmember Donaldson was saying, this is an investment in our future. So, as much effort and resources we put into it now, we're going to reap those benefits as we go forward. But also, I think we need to realize that, training and keeping things going here are a little different than they are in other agencies, because, like for the city of Monterey, when a staff member leaves the city of Monterey, there's a whole team of people behind them who can now divvy up that workload and keep things going. And once the new person comes in, there's people who are there with the institutional knowledge to train that person and keep things going. So you don't really see it. It's a blip. Here, when a person leaves, an entire department leaves. And so there's an entire department now that the one person who knew everything and knew how everything was is gone. And so that it's always going to be a challenge for us to deal with those things when they happen unexpectedly.
No, absolutely. The budget, the amount that we budgeted RGS for, what percentage is HR versus financial? Do we know that?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Yeah, it's mostly financial.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
HR is still a smaller percentage of it.
Okay. And then our audit, that's not part of that budget item.
Which audit? We have several.
When we do our audit at the end of the year.
At the end of the year.
Yeah, our financial audit.
Yeah, the assistance that we
That's
get
it.
from them.
That's
Is
separate.
yeah, it is part of that.
Okay. 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 I
Yep.
think that's it for now. Thanks.
So Kim addressed, so a couple of things. So there was a $50,000 delta at the end of the year. And you had indicated that you had put something into play for HR. I would like to see the HR and the financial numbers separate. So as we get reports, we can see. Where did that extra 50K come from? And should we have known that? I mean, we've been meeting every month. I would like to be able to anticipate those kinds of things.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise for me too.
Okay.
And some of it is, that's why we're going to come back at the next council meeting with a new contract.
Okay.
And basically start from scratch, because we were building off of previous contracts and extending contracts, and it got a little convoluted. And so I lost track of it. And so,
Okay.
yeah, but with, without going into detail, some of the personnel things that we've been dealing with over the last year needed professional focus, so that we make sure things were done right. So,
thank you for that. The other thing is, I would like to talk about the timing of the contract. It seems to me, having a contract that starts, I'm guessing in August or September, it seems like it may be more advantageous for us to time it so it begins in May, or so we understand the number for the next year. Am I off on that? Any thoughts about that, John, Roberto?
yeah, I'd like to get to where it starts in July with the fiscal year, and
So we know, so we're approving it in June.
right, yeah,
Right.
yeah, and so that's what we're working toward.
So
That's
can
the
we-
goal. Yep.
Yeah.
So can we make the upcoming contract for only 10 months? And then and then in June, that the new contract starts in July and we're on target?
Yeah, probably what's easier, because, like Roberta said, we're actually over the amount for the previous contract. We'll make this one for July. We'll just make it retroactive
Okay.
for July. And then that way we're on track going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because I think that's important. And I just want to come back to the audit. So we don't pay Siobhan separately for the audit? That
Yeah,
goes
that's
through
separate.
RGS?
No, that's a separate contract.
Okay.
Roberto and Ermelinda and all the background support work that they do to help us with the audit
Right.
is part of this contract.
Okay, so back to Councilperson Shirley's question, there is an additional cost for the actual audit.
Right,
But-
with Siobhan and Associates, yeah.
Right,
Sorry.
Siobhan. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand that, yeah.
And then the other thing, I'm looking at this right now personally in my job is to create standard operating procedures. So to help with transition, right? So as somebody comes in, it seems to me that there could be, someone that creates standard operating procedures. So a new person would have a binder to be able to, to have, or is that part of the personnel manual? It seems as though because we're so small and because we've watched quite a bit of turnover the last couple of years, it would be good for us to have that.
Yeah, that's part of what we're hoping to develop, but those things take time, especially with limited resources. Yeah. But yeah, at the very least, for the financial system, we should have something that somebody can use to understand what their role is in terms of putting things into the system.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah.
That
That's-
screenshots.
Yeah.
Push here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to tap you to get us some interns to help us with that.
I would be thrilled to
Yeah.
get the city interns.
Yeah, that would be
Yes.
great. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
So I think we're at a point now where that's something we can handle.
great.
Yeah, because interns take time because they need to be trained too on what you need them to do. So yeah.
They need to understand the context too, but I think, again, we're talking about investments of time into things that will pay us rewards years out, and interns are kind of the same thing. You got to invest a little at the beginning, and some of them are amazing and some of them need a little more hand holding.
Yeah, well, and we want it to be beneficial for the city, but we also want them to get something from it. That's the point of an internship.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Right. That was all I had. Actually, I did have one comment about the July 2022, I think. I really like the inclusion of the HDL report. I love the graphs and showing money coming in and the analysis. So if that could be included, I just think it's, one more tool for especially the public to be able to visualize our city versus the county and, how things are coming in. So I really appreciate that. So thank you. John, anything further from you before we move on?
No, thank you.
Mayor, if I
Oh,
may just-
sorry. We're
That's
moving
okay.
on to the HDL quarterly newsletter. Sorry.
That's right.
If
I
I may.
preempted it.
If I may, just two things regarding, when I came to work at the city, the books were a mess, to say the least. I work with a lot of other agencies on the Monterey Peninsula, and right now, as of now, at the end of July, to me, your books are as good as anybody, and I'm familiar with what other agencies have, and some of them are not up to par. Beth Mariano, who you guys met, she came and assisted with. She's very detail oriented, so your balance sheet, everything is all cleaned up, and maybe one of these meetings we'll go over what all is in your books, not just the financial reports, but so you can see, to me, they're where I would want them to be. I always wanted to work on them, but I just did not have the time to do that. She's very much detail oriented, so your books are nice and clean. The numbers say what they are. There's other agencies, the numbers are there, but they're kind of iffy sometimes. The other thing is that there is also, just for you to keep in mind, there's always the unexpected things that pop up. Like right now, the city just got notified by CalPERS that it's going to undergo a CalPERS audit for holiday pay. So we have to dig out all sorts of information, send it to them, and then they're going to come back and asking for more detailed information. So there's always other little things besides just the routine. And we're going to be starting to track on our side, on the billing side, the routine items from the extraordinary things that come up, so that like, oh, okay, we have something else that we know is going to throw off the budget because it's just an unexpected item that just came up. So just so you know that we're going to be doing that to track those extra costs that come up.
Thank you, Roberto. I think it's important for the full council to understand that, that when, an unexpected audit comes in, it will cost more money, and that Yeah, I think that's important to know. And to so divvy it, the money up, kind of like legal does, right? Legal
Sure.
has by account or by topic that would be helpful as we move forward, you know.
Okay, that's it.
So shall we move on to the receive HDL quarterly newsletter?
Yep.
Okay.
You want to cover it, Roberto? I don't want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, no,
This
me,
is your
uh,
bailiwick, so I don't want to take the wind from your sails. I'll come in
Okay.
after you and tell them what I think they need to pay attention to.
Okay, so this is gonna be it's a quarterly update that HDL provides. They provide a wealth of information, but it's not subject to public disclosure. This is information that can be shared with the public. So we will be providing this on a quarterly basis as they release it. It'll be part of your packet. And as you can tell, they do some high-level graphics for this quarter. You know, everything was up. Our first quarter, the county, the state, we were actually up more than the county and the state by business group. And then they give you a little bit of highlights as oops, let me see, about the city of Delray Oaks. So they let you know that the confidentiality rules limit how much they can give. So they try to do their best. So one of the things that they do provide always is the top 25 producers. That way it's top 25 alphabetically. I think if you live in Delray Oaks, you can pretty much tell which ones are the high producers versus not. But these are the top 25 bringing revenue into the city. And they also give you an idea of the statewide results, how the state was doing. The other item that's good to look at here is this revenue by business group for Delray Oaks. This is for the city for the quarter. So all the revenue, where it came from, you can tell 25% or so, it looks like, well, 28%, food and drugs, you know, you can tell where that came from. Fuel, I think you can kind of tell where most of that came from. Restaurants, definitely you can tell where that came from. And then there's 24%, almost a quarter of the city's sales tax comes from what's called the county pool. This is your Amazon and all these others that don't have a specific point of sale, but there's a lot of it coming. People are buying from throughout the county, buying. It's not allocated to a specific city. It goes into what's called the county pool, and not just Amazon, but there's a lot of other things that go into the county pool, and then they allocate that pool to all the cities based on what the city's share was of the sales tax for the quarter. For Delray Oaks, because this was a really high quarter, we ended up with 24% of the revenue for the city's revenue coming from the pool. So if I may, up here, you can see that the county's revenue was up 18.1%. That's everybody, including Delray Oaks. And then within that, there's that pool of revenue that's allocated to everybody. But because Delray Oaks was up much higher than everybody else in the county, for this quarter, Delray Oaks got a much higher share of the pool. And that's why 24% of the city's sales tax came from this county pool, which is a lot of Amazon and things of that nature that are not allocated to a specific city. But you know, anybody that wants to know, where does the city get its sales tax? Well, restaurants, food and drug, and fuel. That's where and the county pool, which is all these other ones, but these are actual locations within the city that generate the revenue. Those are the sales tax generators, the ones that we want to keep an eye on, because if anything happens to them, then sales tax will go down. And sales per capita, they give you here, I mean, population-wise per capita, the city's doing well in comparison to the state of California. And it's just a 2-pager. And this is information you can share with anybody. So it'll be in the packets, in the council packets every quarter as information. That's all there is. Any particular questions you might have, we can try and answer them.
Thanks, Roberto. You know how I feel about it. I love it.
Okay.
The more information, the better, and the more visual information, even more better, more better. Councilman Donaldson.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. I really like this, and it provides, you know, some a really a good snapshot of kind of where we are, and you know, thank God for Safeway. I mean, they got a huge chunk of it, and then we get, you know, even a little bit more with that pool. And you can see on there, it's like you see that bump in sales at the within Q1 of 2020. And, you know, Safeway was in the sweet spot there. And I'm sure that's why that spiked so high. But yeah, this gives a great visual. And I like to see it, or would like to see it included, just like the mayor suggested, that we continue to put that in there. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Councilperson Shirley.
Yeah, thank you for reviewing this, Roberto. I was curious, the pool, which was about 24%. Do you have a memory of what it historically comes in? I don't have any reference point. So is it other quarters? Have we only gotten 10%? I mean, I saw in the report we were like 75% above the rest of, you know, some of the other cities. So I know we've done well, but I'm just wondering what we could expect in other quarters for that piece of the pie.
I don't recall offhand, but I know when we met with HCL, they did tell us that this was a really good quarter for the city, just because not only was sales tax up, not only was the county pool up, but the city's share of that pool just got bigger because we got quite a bit more percentage-wise than some of the other agencies around here. Offhand, let's see, I can't find it off the top of my head right now, but we can certainly provide that to you. Maybe for the next presentation, we'll let you know exactly what percentage we can expect going forward. But,
Yeah, I was just curious. So that's like when we shop online, or like if we buy a car, or like it's those taxes that become part of that pool.
Basically, yeah, it's things where there isn't
Okay.
an actual location in town that you're buying it from, that they get allocated.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, all good news. I'm actually a little surprised at the percentage that we get from the fuel from selling gas. I hadn't, you know, really thought about that as also being a pretty large piece of the pie, but so that's interesting.
And I think with the price of fuel, we'll probably expect that to keep it a little bit on the higher side.
Right. Yeah, but it shows it's probably a busy station, although I guess that's between 7-Eleven station and then the gas at the car wash too, right? So I guess we've got two places. Yeah. Okay, good. No, thanks for that additional information. Good to see.
Okay, so before we adjourn, City Manager Roberto, any last comments?
No, the only thing I have on the sales tax thing, which is nothing new to you all, is, you know, you saw in there, we're doing well. Apparently, you know, the sky is down and the world doesn't make sense anymore because, you know, one week we're in a recession, the next week we're not in a recession. Gas prices are crazy, inflation's crazy, and our sales tax and our sales receipts continue to go up. So I don't know, it's not normal. So it's good. I'm happy, but you see on there that our revenue streams are very narrow. And so if and when there is a recession, depending on what sectors it hits, it could, you know, we have lack of diversity of our revenue streams. So we could get hit pretty hard. So, you know, we need to be thinking about how to diversify our revenue streams and getting vacancies at Crossroads filled, things like that. So we've been working, you know, I've been talking with the Davies who manage those properties and other folks to see if there's anything we can do to help them encourage people to come in. There are some bright spots potentially on the horizon, but so far they haven't materialized. But, you know, we continue to look for new opportunities going forward. As we mentioned earlier, our cannabis businesses continue to suffer, and the receipts that we get from that continue to go down. So we're looking for what's the next thing? Where do we transition from that? And, what's going to keep us going for the future? So just things for you to be thinking about as we plan for the future.
Roberto, anything?
No,
All right. Well, thank you as always for coming and, giving us definitions, all these little teeny nuances here and there. And so what I'm hearing is we won't have a final 2022 budget until probably September.
yeah, hopefully by
Yeah.
the finance committee meeting, we should have the numbers
Okay,
pretty well finalized.
wonderful. That'd be great. All right. So on that, it's 5 to 1 and we are adjourned.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.
See ya.
Bye.